This is Our Stigma, Episode 6, Season 1.
Welcome. We're going to begin with one important yet simple question that I want to start this episode off with. What is one simple way your community can make progress in addressing mental health or addiction stigma? And you might wonder why I'm encouraging small progress instead of big ideas. Trust me, after years of community organizing as a person with lived experience of a co-occurring disorder, every big dream or massive plan that I've ever imagined has led to burnout. Trust me. This podcast is the result of many tiny steps. Over the past 5 episodes, we've discussed emotional topics. Profound spiritual perspectives have been shared. The frustration and harsh reality of policy continues to make me pause and reflect. I'm also deeply grateful for the professionals, the caregivers, the peers who have taught me incredible lessons. In this episode, I'm joined by 2 familiar voices. Passionate advocates with both professional expertise and lived experience. They're going to help me explore how real change is not only needed, but possible. Today, I've invited Farhia Budul from episode 4 and Yeng Moua, better known as Y Moua, from episode 5. They're going to join me in a conversation about simple steps that you can consider to introduce in your context. I'm Seth Perry, and this is the season finale of Our Stigma. Hi there, I'm back with Farhia Budul. She's the founder of Niyyah Recovery Initiative. Say hello, Farhia.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Sidee tihiin, ma fiican tihiin, soo dhawaada.
Thank you so much for being here and coming back. I'm grateful for that. And then Y Moua, co-founder of Koom Recovery. How are you?
I'm good. Nhớ rằng số lên sở tuổi em luôn học podcast nó.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to get right into talking about the questions that we're going to address in our roundtable discussion today. So first of all, I'm someone deeply concerned about federal cuts and freezes to addiction and behavioral health and mental health services, especially how these cuts will impact already marginalized communities. So I want to ask, what simple everyday actions are you taking to bring recovery to those most in need in your community? And we'll start with you, Farhia.
Yeah, great question. The most impactful thing that we're doing is just simply showing up. You know, we're just showing up for people. We're really meeting them where they're at. We're letting them know that recovery is possible. We're going into the homes and helping families navigate what treatment and recovery looks like for an individual, because families are broken right now. You know, they don't know where to even start the process. They don't know if recovery is even gonna work. So the simple things that we're doing right now is just showing up, really just showing up.
Mm-hmm. And how about yourself?
For us, Koom Recovery, it's a lot what Farhia says, but the one things that we do is, like, I always like to encourage, like, me and my volunteer teams is like, pick up that phone call.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes it count. It's that first initial phone calls that you pick it up. That's what's gonna make and change some of these decisions of going to treatments. Because if you don't pick up that phone call, the chance that you're gonna lose them is very high. Mm-hmm. So that's I always encourage my teams to do is, hey, just pick up that random phone calls because you can change a life.
And my phone rings quite a bit in my line of work, and I know exactly both what you're talking about, that the actionable steps that I need to do are just be there and listen for people, right? And I need to be able to go into their homes. That's what I do. A lot of people don't know that a pastor does visits, and I'm okay doing a visit if someone is actively drunk, if they're actively using, if they have no desire even really to go to treatment or seek treatment. But that's kind of what an RCO and the life of a pastor kind of intertwine. I think that's why we have so much in common, right? We're advocates. And moving to the conversation around advocacy, I want to ask this question. So advocacy can be inspiring, but it's also hard, incredibly hard work. And in the last year, when was a time that you felt discouraged in your advocacy, in your work? And then how did you push through that moment? So go ahead.
For us, substance use disorder is such a taboo topic in the Hmong community. It doesn't matter how much like we trying to push into like our elders to advocate for that recovery is issues. A lot of time, that discourage our teams. But then like I always tell my teams like, hey, we gotta do it. We gotta tell a story. We gotta push forward because like I don't want to say bad things, but I always tell them like, hey, those elders not gonna be around forever. It's our job to educate the younger one too. So let's just advocate both direction and whichever works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you see any similarities with what he's talking about? I've often made this parallel between the imams and the clan leaders and then also the people that are elders in my church, right? Like there's the old tradition. So can you speak to that a little bit and then share a little bit about your advocacy?
Yeah. Advocacy is part of the solution and the work that we're all doing as, recovery community organizations. That is one of the principles. So our advocacy really looks like, and the time that I did get, I was like, oh, discouraged? Yeah, because like the big idea is that you're able to advocate for this important issue, but like you want others to understand and to feel your pain and to like make recommendations to like change policies, put funding where it needs to go and all of that, right? And with this new administration coming in and all the cuts that has happened, yeah, it made it a little bit more harder to advocate, but that doesn't mean that the work needs to stop, right? So one way that we can overcome that is just continue to show up and continue to organize and mobilize each other and just communicate and do a lot more engagement, within our cultural communities and also the bigger RCOs in our state. Yeah.
And I'd like to add to that too, is like one of the things that, we have to educate our community to advocate that this is as important as like say diabetes or heart disease. And I think it all comes down to educate your own community so that they can advocate at the Capitol with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's really easy to rally people around a cause like cancer, right? And that's something very specific, very physical in its diagnosis. But when it comes to addiction or mental health, it seems to be something that a lot of people are ashamed of, and I was ashamed of for a real long time until I went public with it. And so the people who have addiction and mental health issues are discriminated, but there's an extra layer of cultural discrimination, and I'll talk a little bit about that right now. So discrimination and oppression in all of their forms: racism, Islamophobia, homophobia, misogyny, transphobia, anti-Semitism, colonialism. They can create real barriers to recovery. And knowing that, why is it important for each of you to recover out loud? Go ahead.
Whew.
I know, I'm laying it all
on. That was a lot. But
Exactly.
sometimes we don't even, like when you come into a place of being in peace with yourself, you don't even realize like the impact that you're making, because it's helping you, it's helping me so much to recover out loud that oftentimes I forget the other people that I'm able to help along the way. And I'm so grateful. Shout out to all the people that are on our social media platforms, the messages that we get to say, oh my God, thank you, Farhia, for sharing this. This is happening to me right now. I am looking for resources. Can you reach out to me? Screenshot that message, send it to the team and say, please get in touch with this person right away. Like, that importance, right? But we come from, and I listened to the episode,
Yeah.
and that's exactly it. How do we help educate people that don't look like me about me and my struggles and how we recover? Because we're all in this together. And even though we grew up different and maybe, I'm not privileged enough, but I'm on the path to peace and I'm on the path to recovery. So that's how we are able to align with ourselves. And so that's what recovery does for me is it takes away all the, the Islamophobia and like none of that belongs in recovery. When we really think about it,
That's
like discrimination and all of that.
It's a way for us to rise above everything that brings people down, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Go ahead.
For us, like the Hmong culture, we are taught a certain way for so long throughout, like not through text or not through books, but it's spoken teaching. And we don't have any like words for like mental health or substance use disorder or those things, those like feelings such as like for like say example the word schizophrenia. We don't have a word for that. The only word that we have for any of that topics is like crazy.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
but like identify crazy, right? We don't have those words, so we still in the process for the Hmong community. I know that a lot of the professionals and stuff like that, we are all still trying to figure out which way to describe which feelings or which way is best to translate English language into Hmong so that there is like a concept or there is words to describe our inner feelings. And for me or for my team, we know that recovery help us identify who we really is, our identities, even though, our parents might not really like say know who they really are because they don't have the times to capture their full identity of who they really is because they're living on survival mode, because that's what Hmong people does. Because throughout histories, we are just surviving every war, every entire generation trauma. We're just trying to survive. But now is the time that for us Hmong people to settle down here in Minnesota or the United States to really find our true self, our true identities, so that we can combat the history of like even like the history of opiate use, right? And I think that now is the perfect time for us to talk about like recovery and our community, so that we can combat it together as a community, not just like individuals. Yeah.
Somali people have been in survival mode, as well, right?
Yeah.
With your history. So when you hear someone share, two different parts of the world, two different conflicts, two different refugee experiences, why does that click for you? You connected with him just then, so.
I did, and that is the shared interest in like the value and like the experience, the lived experience, not only from substance use disorders, but also from our trauma that we've endured, that we can relate so much. And Hmong culture and Somali culture is very similar. I grew up in St. Paul, went to Murray Junior High School, went to Arlington High School, literally just grew up with a lot of Hmong people, and we got to really get to know each other. So when I met Y, it was like, hey, he was like one of the first Hmong people that I've met to share his story. So that was important.
Yeah.
One thing I need to talk about is spirituality, because in my experience as a pastor, I couldn't embrace my full spiritual identity until I was living out loud, right? Being proud as a recovery person in recovery, in mental health recovery, addiction recovery. And for both of you, spirituality is huge, right? Completely different pathways of peace and faith, but you both have been able to get immense, there's an immense wealth in your spiritual journey. So my question is, when you have seen there be barriers in your culture to faith, how have you overcome them? right? So do you want to start?
Yeah. There have been a lot of barriers for me. I think the most important thing for me was I was running away from myself. And recovery gave me an opportunity to run back to myself. So when I say that, it's part of the higher self piece of that connection that I lost, that I had with Allah growing up. And the disease took that away from me. Spirituality gave me an opportunity to understand like who God is. And in order for me to understand who God is, I need to understand who Farhia Budul is. Who are you, Farhia? So I have to get to know who I am through God. That God is compassionate and he's merciful and he is the source from all which originates. So I had no choice but to run back to him. So then when I was able to do that and really understand and also repent and ask for forgiveness and ask for forgiveness from my family members and all the people that I've harmed, including myself and Allah, I started to feel a sense of peace within me. So that's the part that I always identify with is I didn't always used to dress like this. And I was fitting into a world which I did not belong. I didn't belong in that world in the first place, but I wanted to fit in so bad to be accepted. So now I feel like the only one that I want him to accept me is Allah. And I think that's part of me that says, I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. I only care about what he thinks. Mm-hmm. Because we're doing God's work on earth.
Yeah.
And that's it. So that's the part that that's the part that fuels me, you know, like the fire. It's lit, you know, it's like, yes, because that has put me in a place that I know exactly what others are feeling. I know what it's like, and I know how to help other people find their way back. But some people aren't ready, and we know when they're not ready, because I was not ready at one point. I ignored so many signs. And finally, that spiritual awakening happens, and your soul gets to be awakened, and you're like, aha, this is what it feels like to fully come back and to have your human spirit awakened. So yeah, so that's what it does for me, recovery.
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And how do you relate to Farhia?
I can relate. Like, I was so lost without like any higher power or identity because of my substance use disorder and some of my mental health issues, right? I was not born into like a Christian family. I was born into a shaman family. My dad was like the clan leader. He was like the shaman person. He did like all the weddings. He do like everything, right? But when I was introduced into like the substance use disorder, I lost all of that identity, right? And then like he passed away, and I kind of like went on to myself, and I didn't have that guidance of like finding my higher power. So I was so lost for so long. But then when I finally have the opportunity to meet Jesus, right? And then I get converted into a Christianity. I'm not saying that, you know, shaman is bad or Christianity is better or Allah is better, because we're in the realm of substance use disorder where we have to respect and honor each individual's religious and what they believe to achieve to combat the disease that we have, right? So for me, you know, getting to know Jesus as my Lord and Savior, that helped me find who I am, you know, just like when I turn into like the Bible, you know, the simple stuff as like, you know, an act of kindness can change a person's to go into like treatment. Mm-hmm. You know, just one word of encouragement can change the whole dynamic of somebody wanted to change, or just that how you live out your life, and they see it, that recovery does work, and they ask you, and then you can go into the in-depth of what helps you is your higher power that makes you align with the way that you walk, the way that you talk, and the way that you perceive yourself in the recovery world, right? So that's how I see it.
Yeah. And unity is kind of what we're talking about here, a unity in spirituality, even though we have different journeys, right? And it's a theme I've heard time and time again working on this project, on this podcast. I've heard it from politicians. I've heard it from, professionals. So unity among people in recovery, unity across political divides. And one person I interviewed said this, and it was very important. He said, if I'm going to reach across the aisle, you're going to have to reach back. And that stuck to me, right, as an important principle. So as we work toward unity, how can we stay hopeful without giving up on the human rights issues and justice issues that we're working for that come along with being in the recovery community?
Yeah, as a recovery community, I think when we talk about like recovery, it has only community organizations have only been in existence far less than treatment centers, right? So like recovery is really where it's at. Recovery happens in the community. That's where people reconnect back into society, whether they need to find a job and get back into their healthy self, their full potential. So the big picture here is, and to answer your question, recovery community organizations need to stick together. We have to show each other compassion. We have to look at more of how we are similar than how we are different. There are a lot of grassroots organizations that are just like startups that are just now beginning the process of building their recovery community organizations. We're 4 years in, we're still building, So seriously, so I think it's important to, when we're reaching out to them, the pioneers, for them to also reach their hand back to us and also to help us along the way, to, give us the support that we need as individuals, as communities, so that we can have recovery across Minnesota. And every part of Minnesota should be an RCO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For I'm speaking on behalf of Koom Recovery. So like, I think that what we're doing is an awesome job by trying to break that trends of thinking that, I see a lot of RCO is like trying to be their own identity or trying to be their own organizations, where a lot of them don't want to collaborate with others. But to Farhia's point, we are like the least amount of recognized recovery community in any setting, right? So we need to for what we've been doing is that we've been trying to partner up with every RCOs that want to partner with us, because we know that, this kind of work, we cannot do it by ourselves. Just like how the phrase that it took a village to raise a child, right? It goes the same thing in the recovery world too. It takes the whole RCO community to help one individuals, because we know that we might not be the best fit for the individual, even though we reach our hand to them. Even they might reach back, like you said, but sometimes it doesn't work because we don't have the extra components on understanding where they're coming from. And I think I can speak on a lot of the RCOs, the persons that we are trying to help might not fit to the things that aligns with the RCOs. So we have to partner up with different RCOs to serve the individuals so that they can have the opportunities to get the life that we are living. Yeah.
And for myself, I need to be held to a standard, right? I'm a pastor. I'm supported by a congregation. This is my this is my career. But I can't ghost you guys after this interview, right?
Yeah.
That's part of the understanding in why we're working together, right? So I first meet you face to face at the Koom Recovery town hall, right? We first met face to face in Cedar Riverside, but there was always an understanding that there's a relationship, and so everyone in the recovery community should understand that. But it's hard work. We all agree on how hard it is. So in the faith community that I pastor, I often hear this sincere question from people, and I've heard it a lot recently, especially since this project has started. They'll say, like, I'm not an addict, I don't have a mental health diagnosis, but I want to help. What can I do? So what would you say to someone who wants to support the recovery movement, even if they don't see themselves as a person in recovery? Go ahead.
I mean, that person is huge. Like, that's the person that we need to grab, and they're an ally right there. The fact that they're saying they want to help makes them an ally. So I think that it's really important. That person needs to reach out to us and get in touch with us. And there's a lot of different things that they can do to help develop, based on their skill set and everything. We need board of directors. We need fundraisers and grant writers. We need outreach, people that can, it takes a lot. I mean, honestly, I don't know how much longer I can say this, but it takes a lot to run a nonprofit. It doesn't matter what kind of nonprofit it is. And if you don't have that infrastructure piece and the right people and the right team, it's going to take you a little bit longer, and it's okay. But it's important to get that person on board to be part of the volunteer team and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, I like to encourage those individuals that, don't have like a diagnosis of substance or mental health, right? You guys are the one that we need to mentor those that are going through recovery and mental health, because you guys have the lived experience of how to live a normal life. You guys are the one that we need to teach those individuals that are going through recovery that, hey, this is how I deal with critical situations so that I don't fall back into like mental health. Like we are the one that should be learning from you guys. Why are you guys not having any issues in your life, right? And we do need those individuals to come and mentor our people, mentor us. I probably need one of those individuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
To teach me how to live a life with free from mental health, right? Like, how do you do that? I want an example. I want that individuals to come show me how to live without have to go through all that mental health. And but we do need a lot, like Farhia says, to run a nonprofit, we have to put in like 4, 5, 10 hats. I know this, Farhia knows this, right? But we like to encourage those individuals to step up, call us, reach out to a recovery community organization and say, hey, how can I help?
And it is a sign that the concept of recovery is changing, because even in the time that I've been clean, 15 years ago, it was, we have 12-step groups. They have their private meetings. They're very inward-facing, and there's not much room for collaboration. That was something where I felt when I got clean, I was like, I can work with the people that are addicts, and everyone else is just everyone else. But when it started to, it was, at first for me, it was very uncomfortable to be like, okay, I'm mingling with people that have all different definitions of recovery, and some people are just allies. But now understanding, especially the learning I've done in this last year, putting this project together, I'm understanding that recovery is a community issue and it involves everybody, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. And to Y's point, cultural RCOs that serve cultural communities, we're now tapping into a very unfamiliar space that is wrapped around with policies and procedures and grant applications that are like 50 pages long, and it's not equitable at all. Like literally, it's not equitable. And that's the kind of mentorship that we seek, is people that know the system, that can help us break it down to us, because we're ready to learn and we've been learning. Oftentimes it's just the processes, the government systems, the procurements, the EGMS systems, all of those things, honestly, is a need that Niyyah has, and an unmet need as well. And we have been doing really well so far with our fiscal sponsorship with Minnesota Recovery Connection. But I just needed to say that part, because if somebody is listening and watching this, and you want to help, these are areas of help that we seek, that opportunity to get, because time served on a project like that is literally, you're doing really good, for like the work that we're doing for recovery. So.
Yeah, there's intention in that work,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's something that would pay huge dividends to a small organization, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to understand that both of your organizations are working against larger organizations that are in the same grant process, right? So that have the funding for a grant writer, that also have a staff, right? So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And our communities contribute a lot to the state economically. We pay taxes. So then you're getting into that taxation without representation aspect, because like, where are the Hmong community and the Somali community, where's their tax dollars going to? Because our communities are the ones who are suffering. Our children are the ones who are suffering. So we need to be intentional about how that funding comes down to the communities that are disproportionately impacted by opioids and addiction and homelessness, unshelteredness, all of that, because we're already there. So anyways, yeah. I mean, I could talk more about that.
I get that. But the important thing to note is you're paying taxes, but then at the same time, both of you are boots on the ground, outreach in your community, right?
Yep.
So you'll be right in Cedar Riverside handing out, necessities, naloxone. You're doing the same thing over in Bruce Vento, other areas, right? So, yeah, equity is huge. Anything else you want to add?
I just want to add that, sometimes it's like Farhia said, it's discouraging, because like we are so like boot on the ground that we are so busy that we don't even have time to even sit down to look at the RFP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you get a grant proposal in front of you, but at the same time, you got 4 or 5 events planned each month, right?
Yeah, just to go and help individuals, or just to bonds family back together, or just to make a little bit difference in somebody's life. And then we don't have that extra components of somebody that can sit there for 8 hours to write the RFP for us, right? And then and it's just a lot of like frustrations, and then we have to compete with all of these big foundations just to get even $1.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like this year I put in like 3 RFP, it all has been denied.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's like,
yeah. So there's a massive inequity, right?
Yeah.
That's and that was my biggest concern entering into this project too. So as we come to a close for this season of the podcast, I wanted to end on a happy note. So here's what I want to ask you, and we'll start with why. If you could tell me one thing that's happened in the last year that you've done, or you and Sienna that have done, that has been uplifting in the work that you've done in the recovery community. You want to share that with me? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, what me and Sienna has done the last year is that we are starting to break the silence of substance use disorder in the Hmong community. People are starting to come out with their story. Families start reaching out saying that, hey, we do have family members that are going through the situation or stories that you guys are putting out there. So that really comfort our heart, knowing that our stories and the work that we're doing is impactful and is reaching like the Hmong communities to come out and talk more about it now. So that keep us going.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Farhia.
That's huge. Congratulations.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. I think one success that we've had is that we got a new space in Cedar Riverside. That's huge because we were pretty much just all over the place. Didn't have a space that we can like call home for Niyyah. So now that we do, and I'm really, really grateful for that opportunity to, and also the in-kind space costs that we got from the owner of the building. So just those kind of things. Those are like small, big successes for us, you know?
When someone wants to pitch in something that's simple, to just give you an office, like that's another thing that we're talking about. Who can help out in a way that's really meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you both for joining me today and participating in this season of Our Stigma. I want to thank everyone who's listened and viewed today, and let's hope that we'll do a season 2. Thank you. Before we close, I want to take a moment to express my deep gratitude to everyone who made this story possible. First and foremost, thank you to the congregation of Elam Lutheran Church. This story could not exist without your support, your openness, and your trust in sharing and bearing witness. Thank you to Sean and Rolando from Washington County Public Health. Thank you to the individuals who courageously shared their stories: Gino, Marty, Pat, Chris, Tanya, Tori, Kirsten Libby, Caleb, and Loretta. Your honesty and insight helped bring this conversation to life. Special thanks to Farhia Budul, founder of the Niyyah Recovery Initiative, and to Yeng Moua from Koom Recovery and his wife Sienna for opening the door to conversations about culturally specific recovery in the Somali and Hmong community. Thank you to Ivan Nelson and Maurice Brown from African American Survivor Services for your work and your voice. Deep gratitude to Richard Wright and the team at American Indian Family Center. Elder Crow, you provided so much insight to this entire project. I'm grateful to Dr. Steve DeLisi for his medical expertise, and to Jeremy Drucker from the Office of Addiction and Recovery for sharing a policy perspective. Thank you to Hodan Hassan, Representative Liz Lee, Pastor Danny Yang, and a heartfelt thanks to Representative Dave Baker for his continued advocacy and personal commitment to recovery issues. I want to thank Diane from M Health Fairview, along with Monique and Nawal. They are cultural navigators who helped build bridges and trust across communities. And a special thanks to Sheldon and Verna. To the team from Good Faith Media that brought this whole production to life: Callie, Missy, Mitch, and Rod. And a special thank you to Starlet Thomas, who is an amazing and great creator, writer, podcaster, and preacher that is a part of the team at Good Faith Media. Check out her podcast, The Raceless Gospel. And a big thank you to Cliff Vaughn. Thank you so much. You put in hours of work producing this project and developing scripts that started as an idea in May of 2024. I'm also grateful to Hmong TV and St. Paul Studios for their media contributions. And finally, thank you to the organizations that supported this podcast: M Health Fairview's Community Faith Partners, the Washington County Opioid Settlement Council and all of their council members, the Niyyah Recovery Initiative for their in-kind support, and also the in-kind support of Koom Recovery. I also have to thank our private donors, and especially Elam Lutheran Church for their continued financial support. I'm Seth Perry, the host, writer, and creator of Our Stigma. Thank you for listening to this story and for walking through these 6 episodes with me. Let's hope for another season.